If you are walking into a case interview tomorrow or next week or even next month, and your default move, your absolute muscle memory, is to grab a sheet of paper and write down revenue on the left and cost on the right, you are wrong.
Plain and simple, you are wrong.
But I don't mean, technically wrong or slightly off. I mean, you are making a fatal error before you've even crunched a single number.
That's absolutely right. Because the moment you do that, the moment you default to those two generic buckets, the interviewer knows exactly who you are.
They can see it coming.
They can smell the memorization a mile away. It's a dead giveaway that you're operating on autopilot, not on insight.
It's the consultant equivalent of a tell in poker, isn't it? You've just shown your hand, and it's a weak one.
It is.
And looking at the reality of the industry, we know this isn't just about passing an interview. It's about the actual job. I mean, top-tier consultants do not walk into a Fortune 500 company, stare the CEO in the face, and say, okay, we're going to look at money coming in and money going out.
Exactly. You'd be laughed out of the boardroom. Imagine the scene for a second. A client is paying a firm millions of dollars for strategic advice. The partner stands up and says, to fix your profit, we need to increase revenue and decrease costs.
Right.
That's not consulting. That's just defining the word profit.
It's like a doctor telling you to stop being sick, you should try being healthy.
Precisely. It's a definition, not a diagnosis, and that's the core of the problem.
So, welcome to the Mindset Shift. This is our special Sunday programming here at Custom Case Coach, where we stop trying to memorize the what and really start learning the how. We're taking a deep dive today into how to actually think like a consultant when you're staring down a profitability problem.
We're trying to move you from what we call robot mode, which is that memorized, panic-induced frameworking, into solution mode.
That's a goal. And before we really unpack this, a quick request for you listening right now. If you are serious about mastering these frameworks, not just, memorizing them, make sure you follow Custom Case Coach.
Yeah, and leave a review.
Please do. It helps us keep the lights on and keep bringing you these deep dives. Okay, let's get into it. The core problem with these generic frameworks. Why is revenue versus cost such a trap?
It's a trap because it's a truism, not a strategy. Look, inherent to any profitability case is math. Profit equals revenue minus cost. That is a mathematical fact. No one disputes that.
Of course.
But the analysis cannot start there.
Right. It's like saying to win the race, you have to run faster than the other guy. True, but that is not helpful coaching.
Precisely. Let's go back to that Fortune 500 test we mentioned. The client knows their profit is revenue minus cost. They have accountants who tell them that every single day.
They have entire departments for that.
They hired you to tell them why those numbers are moving and, more importantly, where to look to fix it. So if you start with revenue and cost, you are starting at the finish line of the definition rather than the starting line of the actual problem.
I think a lot of candidates do this because it feels safe, It's a safety blanket. You sit down, you're nervous, the clock is ticking, you think, okay, I know profit is revenue minus cost, so I'll just write that down and I can't be wrong.
It is safe, but it's sterile. It doesn't generate ideas. If I tell you revenues are down, what does that tell you about the business?
Nothing, really.
Nothing. It could be that people hate the product now. It could be that the entire sales team just quit. It could be a massive recession. It could be a simple pricing error. Revenue is a bucket that is just... it's too big to be useful.
So what does a real consultant do if we're not starting with the math? Where do we start?
They break the business down into logical segments. This is the key word, segments. They use the specific context of the firm, the industry, the specific situation, the geography, to decide through which lens they are going to analyze those numbers.
Oh, I love that image of the lens. So the numbers, the raw data of the company, they're the same, but the lens changes depending on if you're, say, a tech startup or a grocery store chain.
Exactly that. If you are using generic buckets, you are basically looking at every single problem through the same blurry pair of glasses. You need to stop now. The goal of this deep dive today is to teach you how to think through the issue so you can build the glasses, the framework, that actually fits the face of the client.
To make this really concrete, we have a brilliant analogy to work through today that has, well, nothing to do with business on the surface. It's about a household crisis, a spouse losing a job.
This is one of my favorite examples because it just strips away all the business jargon, EBITDA, margins, overhead, and it exposes the logic flaws immediately.
Okay, let's set the scene for the listener. Imagine you are married. Both you and your spouse work. You have a household company, so to speak. Suddenly, your spouse loses their job. the household profits, your savings rate, essentially have declined. You're in a crisis.
Right. Now, imagine you hire a consultant to help you fix this. Let's look at the bad consultant approach first. This is what we call the root cause obsession.
This is the candidate who always says, profits are down. Let's find the root cause.
So they investigate. They look at the situation and find out the root cause is that the spouse's company downsized. Okay,
Right.
maybe the company lost a big contract or the whole industry is shrinking.
Okay, makes sense.
So their solution, their big strategic recommendation to you is, we must fix the downsizing issue at your spouse's former company to get the job back.
Which is absurd. You can't fix a massive corporation's downsizing just to get your husband's job back.
It's completely out of your control.
That would be like me trying to fix the weather because I want to go for a picnic.
Exactly. But candidates do this all the time in cases. They find a problem. Oh, raw material prices for steel went up, and their first instinct is to try to reverse it directly. We need to lower steel prices. Well, you can't. That's a global market. You are a small player. Fixing the root cause is not always the way, or even a possible way, to restore profitability.
It feels like sometimes candidates get stuck in detective mode instead of strategy mode.
That's a great way to put it.
They want to solve the crime of why the profit dropped, but they forget the client just wants to make money again.
That's a perfect distinction. The client doesn't pay you to be a historian of their failure. They pay you to be the architect of their future.
Okay, so that's bad approach A, the impossible fix. What about bad approach B, the generic revenue cost robot?
Ah, yes. This is the financial advisor who sits you down, charges you a $5,000 fee, looks at your spreadsheet and says, okay, here is my advice. You have a profitability problem. You need to increase your revenue and decrease your costs.
I would demand a refund immediately.
Of course you would. It's technically true. I mean, if you do those things, the problem is solved, but it's practically useless. It offers zero strategy. It implies you don't know how to run your own life. It inspires zero confidence. It doesn't tell you how to increase revenue or which costs to cut.
It's almost patronizing. Oh, earn more money. Why didn't I think of that?
Right. And yet, this is what 80% of candidates do in the first minute of a profitability case. They state the obvious and expect credit for it.
So let's flip it. What does the good consultant do in this household crisis? How do we build a tailored framework for this specific nightmare?
The good consultant looks at the specific situation, a two-income household, one job loss, and creates buckets that represent actionable paths forward. We have 3 perfect buckets here that we use at Custom Case Coach.
Let's walk through them. Bucket number 1.
Bucket 1 is spouse her again. We focus specifically on the person who lost the income. But we don't just say, get a job. We segment the options based on the labor market.
Okay, so break that segmentation down for us. What does that look like?
Sure. First, can they get the same job back? It's unlikely, but let's check. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they can consult for the old firm. Second, can they get a job in the same industry? That's usually the easiest pivot because they have the skills and the network.
Right, that's the path of least resistance.
Exactly. Third, can they switch industries or roles? Maybe the industry is dying and they need to pivot to tech or healthcare. And fourth, can they start a side hustle or freelance?
See, that's already so much richer. You're exploring the labor market specific to that person. It feels like a plan of attack. You aren't just hoping for revenue, you are actively hunting for it in specific defined places.
Exactly. And notice we haven't even mentioned the other spouse yet. That's a completely separate bucket.
Which brings us to bucket 2.
Bucket 2 pivots to the other asset in the house. You, the partner, earn more.
Oh, that's interesting. So instead of just looking at the loss, you look at the remaining revenue stream. This is something people often forget in a panic.
Exactly. It's diversification. When one engine fails on a plane, you throttle up the other one. Can the partner get a higher income from their current job? Maybe a bonus or negotiating a raise or simply taking on more hours?
Right.
Can they get a second job? Can they start a side hustle? This is a completely different set of actions than bucket 1. Bucket 1 is about job hunting. Bucket 2 is about negotiation and capacity.
I really like this because it doubles the surface area for a solution. If bucket 1 is slow, I mean, maybe the job market is just bad. Bucket 2 might be fast.
That's the consultant mindset right there. You are looking for levers, and you want as many levers as you can possibly pull.
And bucket 3.
Bucket 3 is reduce household expenses. But again, we don't just say cut costs. That's too vague. It's useless. We break it down into discretionary versus non-discretionary.
Why is that distinction so important?
Because the actions are completely different. Discretionary expenses are things like Netflix, dining out, vacations. You can cut those to zero immediately. It's painful, sure, but it's easy to execute.
You just cancel the subscription.
Exactly. Non-discretionary expenses are the mortgage, the electricity bill, the car payment. You can't just stop paying them. So the action is different. You have to negotiate them. You have to try to refinance the mortgage. You have to call the utility company and get on a different plan.
So the cost bucket is actually a behavior change bucket and a negotiation bucket.
Precisely. And what I love about this is that if you present this to a client, or in this case, your spouse, it feels like a real plan. It feels like you understand the levers you can pull. It's empowering.
That is the definition of a strong framework. It solves the problem rather than just describing the mass. It turns "we are broke" into "here are 3 distinct projects we're going to work on starting today."
And that is what a CEO wants. They want projects. They want work streams. They don't want math lessons.
Okay, so we've established the mindset using the household example. I think that's super clear. Now, let's apply this to actual business cases. We have 3 very different scenarios to test this on today. First up, the boutique hotel.
Right, so let's look at the prompt. You are advising a boutique hotel located in the suburbs of Paris. Profits have declined.
Now, the robot, our nemesis, would say, revenue and cost. And maybe, if they're feeling fancy, fixed and variable costs.
And the robot would fail. Because you cannot treat a single boutique hotel in the suburbs the same way you treat a global manufacturing plant. The context, single location, hospitality industry, Paris suburbs, drives the buckets. It has to.
So let's look at the tailored framework for this hotel. What's the first bucket?
The first bucket we recommend is travelers.
Not revenue.
No, travelers. Because in hospitality, revenue is entirely driven by the type of people coming through the door. By calling the bucket travelers, you force yourself to analyze the market and the customer blend immediately. Revenue is just a number on a spreadsheet. Travelers are human beings with wallets and preferences.
Okay, that makes sense. So what are we looking for in this travelers bucket?
We're looking at macroeconomic changes. Remember, the prompt might imply timing. Is this case set during COVID? Is it during a recession? How about work from home trends? Are people traveling less for work? We're also looking at the split. Business travelers versus leisure travelers, their needs and preferences are totally different.
Right. A business traveler needs fast Wi-Fi, a quick breakfast, and an ironing board. A leisure traveler wants a great view, concierge with local tips, and maybe a romantic dinner package.
Exactly. If your hotel is in the suburbs of Paris, maybe you used to rely heavily on business travelers visiting nearby corporate headquarters. But with Zoom, that segment is gone. However, maybe leisure is up because people want to escape the city center for the weekend.
And if you just look at revenue, you see a number going down.
But if you look at travelers, you see who stopped coming. And that changes everything.
It also tells you how to market, doesn't it? If you know business travel is dead, stop advertising on LinkedIn and start advertising on Instagram for weekend getaways. Revenue doesn't tell you that. Travelers tells you that. What's the second bucket?
Bucket 2 is other accommodation options. This is your competitor bucket, but we've renamed it to fit the context.
Why rename it? Why not just say competition?
Because competition triggers a narrow focus. You might just list other hotels in the area. Other accommodation options forces you to think much broader. So yes, we are looking at direct players, other boutique hotels. We're looking at the big chains, Marriott, Hilton, they offer something we don't. But crucially, we are looking at the disruptors.
The Airbnbs of the world.
The Airbnbs, the couch surfing, the VRBOs. If you are a boutique hotel in Paris, your biggest threat might not be the Hilton down the road. It might be a charming apartment on Airbnb that costs half the price and offers a full kitchen.
And especially in a suburbs of Paris context, that local, authentic flavor is huge. If you just have a generic competition bucket, you might miss that nuance because you're only looking at other hotel lobbies. You need to look at where people sleep.
Exactly. It's all about substitutability. What can the customer substitute for your product?
And the third bucket.
Bucket 3 is our boutique hotel. This is the internal bucket. Now we finally look at the specific building. Have there been recent renovations that spiked costs? What is the breakdown of the rooms? Are we selling out the expensive suites, but the standard single rooms are always empty? And are there other revenue streams? Is there a restaurant, a spa, a bar?
That's a great point about this specific building. A boutique hotel isn't a factory. It has charm, but it also has unique maintenance issues. Maybe the plumbing is old. Maybe the restaurant is actually the real draw, not the rooms.
Right. By isolating our boutique hotel as a specific bucket, you can look at operational efficiency, asset utilization, and ancillary revenue all in one place. You're not mixing it up with external factors.
So the takeaway here is that by naming the buckets travelers, accommodation options, and our boutique hotel, you're practically writing the analysis for yourself before you even start.
Exactly. You are setting yourself up for success. You've defined the playing field before you even start playing.
Okay, let's scale this logic up. That was a single building. Now let's look at the second case, McDonald's.
A massive shift in context. The prompt is, we are advising McDonald's on declining profits,
And the robot says,
revenue and cost,
and the robot gets fired again.
without a doubt.
But wait, why can't we use the hotel framework? I mean, we could say eaters, other food options, and our restaurants, couldn't we?
You could, but it would be very weak. Because McDonald's is a multinational corporation, an MNC. The scale is completely different. The hotel was one building in one location. McDonald's is everywhere. So you need a framework that can handle that scale and complexity.
Got it. So what's the first bucket for McDonald's?
We suggest starting with other prepared food providers. This is the market bucket. But look at the subpoints. We aren't just looking at other burger joints. We are comparing fast food, unhealthy, versus healthy fast food.
That's a huge trend right there. The shift to places like Chipotle or Sweetgreen.
Right. And we are looking at the method of consumption. Food delivery services versus meal kits versus at-home cooking. McDonald's isn't just fighting Burger King anymore. They are fighting Blue Apron and Uber Eats. They are fighting the grocery store deli counter.
It's the share of stomach concept.
Exactly.
Oh.
And the share of wallet. If people are cooking more at home because of inflation, McDonald's loses. If people are ordering more from Uber Eats, McDonald's loses margin to the delivery fee. You need a bucket that captures these complex market dynamics.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Now here is where the framework really diverges from the hotel. What is bucket 2?
Bucket 2 is geography. This is the crucial addition for any multinational case.
Why is this so important here? Why can't we just look at the global profit number?
Because a global number is an average, and averages lie. They hide the truth. McDonald's operates completely differently in every region. If profits are down globally, is it a global problem? Or is France doing great, but the US is crashing? Is Asia booming, but South America is struggling? You must segment by region to isolate the problem.
I see. So if you try to fix global profit, you might change the menu everywhere, which could ruin the markets that are actually doing well.
Exactly. You might break the good parts trying to fix the bad parts. You have to isolate the infection before you treat it.
That's the Pareto principle in action, right?
Yes.
You're trying to find the 20% of the regions that are causing 80% of the problem.
Precisely. And within that bucket, we look for macro forces in specific regions. Maybe a new regulation change in the EU, banning plastic straws, increased costs there. Or business unit forces in specific regions. Maybe the US marketing team launched a terrible campaign. Maybe the supply chain in China was disrupted.
And the third bucket,
Bucket 3 is menu. This is the product bucket.
again, very tailored. Not just products, but menu.
Right. Because McDonald's is defined by its menu specialization. We need to break down performance by category. The dollar menu is that driving traffic but absolutely killing our margins. Traditional items like the Big Mac. New items, are they flopping? Healthy versus unhealthy options.
This allows you to cross-reference everything, doesn't it?
Yes, and that is the secret sauce.
Yeah.
You aren't just asking, are costs up? You are asking, are costs up in the U.S. specifically on the dollar menu? That is a hypothesis you can actually test. Are costs up is just a vague question that gets you nowhere.
I really want to drill this down for the listener.
Yeah.
The difference between asking, are costs up, and are costs up in the U.S. on the dollar menu, is the difference between a junior analyst and a seasoned consultant.
It's the difference between getting the job and getting that polite feedback email saying, thanks, but no thanks. We felt you lacked structure. The specific question implies you have a map of the business in your head. The vague question implies you are lost in the woods.
All right, let's move to the third case. This one is high stakes. This is a crisis case.
This is the Sky China case. Very intense.
The prompt is Sky China, a Chinese airline. It is March 2020. Due to COVID-19, they are seeing plummeting profits. They have brought you in to prevent bankruptcy.
The context shift here is massive. It's not just business as usual, profits are dipping a bit. It is March 2020. The world is shutting down. And the goal isn't just fix profit, it's prevent bankruptcy.
So if you walk in there with a standard profitability framework, you are going to die.
You're dead in the water. This is a survival case. The buckets have to reflect urgency and liquidity. You don't have time for a 5-year marketing plan or some big rebranding strategy.
Let's look at the framework we developed for this. It's aggressive. Bucket 1, claw back existing revenues.
Notice the language, clawback, not grow revenue. You can't grow revenue in March 2020 for an airline. It's impossible. No one is flying. You are trying to salvage whatever you possibly can.
So what's inside this bucket? What does that look like?
It's all about context. Flights are grounded. Fear is at an all-time high. So, step 1, make sure planes can even fly. Are we legally allowed? Are the airports open? Step 2, get people to want to fly. You have to address the safety perception. Cleaning protocols, masks, empty middle seats. Step 3, get people to want to fly with us specifically.
It's purely defensive.
Very defensive. It's about scraping the bottom of the barrel for any cash coming in. It's about managing refunds versus vouchers. We need to stop cash from leaving the building in the form of refunds at all costs.
Bucket 2 is where the consultant mindset really shines. Capture new revenues.
This is the creative pivot bucket. We know passenger travel is dead for now. We can't afford to spend money on new ventures. We can't buy new companies. So the question is, how do we leverage our existing assets?
And you've broken that down into assets, people, and processes.
Right. We have assets, planes. If people aren't flying in them, what can fly? Cargo, PPU, medical supplies. In March 2020, moving masks and ventilators was the only game in town for an airline.
I remember seeing pictures of passenger planes with the seats filled with boxes just strapped in.
Exactly. That is a consultant thinking. I have a tube that flies. If it can't carry people, what will pay me to carry it? Then you look at people. We have staff. Can we lease our pilots to cargo airlines? Can we lend our ground crew to logistics companies? And processes. Can we use our supply chain expertise to help governments distribute vaccines?
This bucket is all about survival through adaptation. It doesn't incur extra cost, which we absolutely can't afford, but it squeezes every last drop of top-line revenue out of existing assets.
Precisely.
Bucket 3, cut costs. But we have to be very specific here. Don't just say fixed versus variable.
In this context, who cares? Who cares if it's fixed or variable?
I love that. Who cares? It feels rebellious.
It is, because in a crisis of this magnitude, the distinction blurs. You need to cut everything. The sub-buckets here are cut excess capacity and streamline operations, meaning ground the planes. Park them in the desert, furlough the staff if you have to. If it's not generating revenue, it goes. That's cutting capacity. Then, for the few flights that are still running, you streamline operations. Make them as lean as humanly possible. No free meals, no extra baggage allowance, no magazines in the seat pockets. It's ruthless efficiency. You are bleeding, and you need a tourniquet.
And finally, bucket 4. This is the one that most candidates would miss because they are too focused on the P&L statement.
Bucket 4 is liquidity. This is the raise cash bucket.
Why is this here? For someone who isn't a finance pro, what's the difference between profit and liquidity in this context?
Profit is on paper revenue minus cost. Liquidity is cash in the bank. You can be profitable on paper. Maybe you have contracts that will pay you in 90 days. But if you have to pay your pilots tomorrow and the bank account is empty, you are bankrupt.
Game over.
Exactly. In March 2020, for airlines, cash was king. You absolutely need a bucket for raise cash just to keep the lights on.
And what are the options inside this bucket?
Debt versus equity. Can we get a loan? Can we sell stock? Public markets versus private markets. Can we get a government bailout? Can we issue bonds? Can we sell a stake in the company to a private equity firm? If you don't have this bucket in your framework, you are not solving the bankruptcy problem. You're just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic.
That is such a powerful example of listening to the prompt. If you ignored the date, March 2020, or the phrase prevent bankruptcy, you would have given a generic airline answer and completely failed.
Exactly. The date provided the constraints. The industry provided the assets. The goal provided the strategy.
Okay, so we've torn down the generic framework. We've built 3 custom ones from scratch. But I can hear the listener thinking, okay, this is great, but I can't invent a totally new framework from scratch every single time in 30 seconds. I need some tools. I need a starting point.
And that's a fair point. We don't want you to memorize frameworks, but we do want you to have a toolbox of segments. At Custom Case Coach, we call these profitability bucket options.
Right. While we prefer not to rely on canned frameworks, we can lean on these major standard buckets. Think of them as Lego blocks. You don't build the same castle every time, but you use the same types of blocks to do it. Let's run through them.
Sure. These are the lenses you can pull off the shelf when you're under pressure. We have external, internal, market, competition, customer, company, geography, product, and channel.
Let's deep dive into the most critical ones and how to actually use them. Bucket option number 1, geographic segmentation. We saw this with McDonald's.
Right, so the definition is pretty simple. Dividing the market by location to find regional trends, differences in customer preferences, and variations in competitive dynamics.
Walk us through the steps, though. If I'm in an interview and I decide, okay, I'm going to use the geography lens, what do I actually do? What do I say?
The steps are crucial. You'd say something like, to understand this, I'd like to segment our analysis by geography. Then, step 1, identify the relevant geographies. Is it countries? Regions like North America versus APAC, cities, or maybe even urban versus rural.
You're defining the map.
Exactly. Step 2, analyze market size and growth in each of those areas. Where is the money? Where's the opportunity? Step 3, examine the competitive landscape per region.
That's so key. The competition in China is completely different than it is in Brazil.
Right. In China, you might be fighting local chains that use apps like WeChat for ordering and payments. In Brazil, it might be all about price sensitivity. In the US, it might be about health trends. Step 4, identify those regional trends and preferences. Step 5, evaluate your company's performance per region market share, revenue growth, profitability. And finally, step 6, recommend strategic actions based on that specific regional analysis.
It's like running a complete mini case within the larger case for each region.
Exactly, but it's focused.
Okay. Bucket option number 2, customer segmentation. This was central to the hotel case.
This involves dividing the market based on customer characteristics, things like demographics, psychographics, and purchasing behaviors.
Psychographics, unpack that for us. That's a term people hear but might not fully get.
Sure. Demographics are who they are, age, gender, income. Psychographics are why they buy, their values, lifestyle, personality. Are they eco-conscious? Are they luxury seekers? Are they tech-savvy early adopters? It's about their mindset.
Got it. So what are the steps for this one?
Very similar process. Step 1, identify the relevant customer segments. Then you analyze the market size and growth for each of those segments. Then, and this is critical, examine the competitive landscape for each customer group.
Give me an example of that last part.
Okay, imagine you are selling running shoes. Maybe Nike completely dominates the professional marathon runner segment because of their high-tech performance gear, but maybe a smaller brand like Allbirds dominates the casual walker segment because of their focus on sustainability and comfort.
Right.
If you don't segment the customers, you just see we are losing market share to our competitors, but you don't know where or why. You need to identify customer preferences per segment, then evaluate your own company's performance across them to find the gaps.
Makes sense. Bucket option number 3, competitor segmentation.
This is identifying your strengths and weaknesses relative to the other players in the market. The steps. Identify your key competitors. Analyze their strategies, pricing, marketing, distribution. Evaluate their financial performance if you can. And, most importantly, identify their USPs, their unique selling propositions.
This is where you ask that fundamental question. Why are they winning?
Exactly. Why does a customer choose them over us? You also examine the broader competitive dynamics, market trends, regulatory changes, technology advancements. Based on all of this, you propose actions to enhance your own competitive advantage. Are they cheaper? Are they faster? Are they cooler? Do they have a better app? You have to know.
Bucket option number 4, product segmentation.
This was the McDonald's menu bucket. Analyzing the company's product mix can reveal incredible insights into performance across different categories. The steps. Identify your product categories. Analyze market size and growth per category. Examine competitor positioning per category. Identify product-specific trends and preferences. Evaluate your company performance per category. Then recommend actions.
This is huge for companies with diverse portfolios. If you're a company like Apple, you don't just look at revenue. You have to look at iPhone, Mac, services, wearables separately.
Because services might be growing at 20% while hardware is shrinking by 5%. If you blend them together, you miss the entire story. Or think about a car company. SUVs might be booming, but sedans are dying.
Yeah.
If you just look at total cars sold, you might think everything is fine, but you're masking the fact that half your product portfolio is becoming obsolete.
And finally, bucket option number 5, channel segmentation.
Right. Examining the company's channel strategy. Online, retail, wholesale, direct-to-consumer. The steps are the same pattern. Identify the channels. Analyze market size and growth per channel. Examine the competitive landscape per channel. Identify channel-specific trends. And evaluate your company's performance per channel.
This is a classic e-commerce problem, right? You hear, our revenue is up, but our profit is down.
Why? That sounds counterintuitive. How can that happen?
Because maybe our sales have shifted from our own brick-and-mortar retail stores, where we keep
Mhm.
100% of the margin, to Amazon, where we pay massive fees and shipping costs.
Exactly. Or maybe we shifted from wholesale, which is low margin but high volume and low effort, to direct to consumer, which is high margin but has a very high customer acquisition cost. If you don't segment by channel, you'll never see that mix shift. You'll just see profit shrinking and be completely baffled as to why.
So the mindset shift isn't about abandoning structure at all. It's about having these powerful blocks: geography, customer, competitor, product, channel, and knowing which ones to grab based on the prompt.
That's it. You hear McDonald's, you grab geography and product. You hear boutique hotel, you grab a customer and competitor. You hear airline crisis, you grab liquidity and operations. You are the architect, choosing the right blocks to build the building that the client actually needs.
Before we wrap up, we need to talk about the fail list, the common pitfalls, the things that will tank your interview even if you have the right buckets.
There are 5 big ones. These are the banana peels waiting for you on the floor.
Pitfall number 1, failing to segment.
We've hammered this home, but it's the biggest one. Not segmenting the market can lead to overlooking crucial insights and opportunities in specific segments. You are trying to read a book by looking only at the cover. You will miss the entire plot. You look at the average, you miss the outlier, and the outlier is where the insight is.
Pitfall number 2, overlooking external factors.
This is living in a bubble, failing to consider market trends, regulatory changes, and technological advancements. If you analyze the Sky China airline case without mentioning COVID or public fear, you are overlooking the biggest external factor in history. If you analyze a tech company today without mentioning AI, you're missing the point. You cannot solve a case in a vacuum.
Pitfall number 3,
Not price.
prioritizing issues.
The Pareto principle again. Candidates should prioritize the most critical issues and focus their analysis on the areas with the highest potential for improvement. A bad consultant says, we have 50 problems, let's make a plan to fix all 50. A good consultant says, these 3 problems are causing 90% of the loss. Let's fix these 3 and ignore the rest for now.
It shows you understand return on investment. Time is money, and the client's time is very expensive.
Exactly.
Pitfall number 4, insufficient data analysis.
This is a big one. Candidates must be thorough in their data analysis, ensuring they draw accurate conclusions and recommendations based on the available information. Don't make recommendations based on a hunch. Don't just say, I think young people like this. Show me the data that says young people like this.
If you guess, you're gambling. If you analyze, you're consulting.
Well put.
And pitfall number 5, the big one,
Lack of structure.
which seems ironic, since we just spent an hour telling them not to use generic structures.
But tailored structure is still structure. A well-structured approach is crucial. Candidates should use a systematic framework, even if it's one they created on the spot, to guide their analysis and ensure all relevant aspects are covered. You can't just ramble. You need to say, I will look at this through 3 lenses, A, B, and C. That is structure. It's just your structure, not a memorized one. It gives the interviewer confidence that you are organized and logical.
It's the difference between a messy pile of clothes on the floor and a color-coded closet. Both contain clothes, but one is much, much easier to navigate.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. Wait, no, let's summarize this. We have covered a lot of ground today.
We have. It's a big topic.
If you take one thing away from this deep dive, what should it be?
Profitability is not a math problem, it's a logic problem. The revenue minus cost structure is a trap. It's a safety blanket that will suffocate your chances of success. Success comes from segmentation, geography, customer, product, etc., tailored specifically to the case prompt you are given.
Be the consultant who solves the specific problem, the McDonald's problem, the Sky China problem, not the robot who solves the general problem.
And always, always remember the Fortune 500 test. If you wouldn't say it to a CEO who is paying you millions of dollars, don't say it to your interviewer.
I love that. Don't say it to the CEO. That's going on a sticky note on my monitor.
It should. It's a great filter.
All right, that brings us to the end of this mindset shift. If you found this deep dive helpful, please, right now, go follow Custom Case Coach, leave a review. It really does help us help you. We'll be back next Sunday for the next installment of the series.
But before you go, here's a final provocative thought for you to chew on. We talked about the spouse job loss case at the beginning. Think about a problem you are facing in your own life right now. It could be financial, relational, career-wise. Are you trying to fix the root cause blindly? Are you just saying to yourself, I need to do better, which is the equivalent of increased revenue? Or have you actually segmented the problem into actionable buckets? The framework applies everywhere. You can case study your own life.
Use the lens. Thanks for listening, everyone.
See you next time.
Keep optimizing.